everybody. Today I have a very special live Q&A session for you, and that is with flutist Mark Wallace. Mark and I go way back. We were in college together for our undergrad, and he came on our podcast a little while ago with Jen and shared his story about focal dystonia. So here he is, and he's going to give. And you guys definitely need to go check out his episode on YouTube, your podcast. Hey, Mark.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I am also well. I'm hopping onto this right after a work virtual meeting had ended, so I'm like in corporate mode.
Nice, nice. So tell the people what do you do?
I work for I work for a major retailer that sells products that many of you are very familiar with.
Well played, sir. Well played. Nice. Yeah, so you're also a flutist.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the things that I would put first after, husband and father. Musician would be the next thing in there. And I'll be honest, a year ago, or 14, 15 months ago, I hadn't said that since then. There was a 10-year period of time when musician had fallen off of my list of descriptive words, but I'm really thankful to add it back and put it right near the top.
Yeah, so you came on our podcast a little while ago, and we had a whole really great conversation about what focal dystonia is and how you came to find out you had it and your whole journey. And what I really loved, what you talked about were like the tells and the things that like kind of precursor, which can you talk just a little bit about what that means? And maybe not tells, but whatever, is that what you call them?
It's so funny you say that. What do you call them? Triggers or it's or like the ghost that's in the room. There's little things that start to creep in. Now it's different for every person. So what I'm about to describe might be completely different than someone else who also has focal dystonia. But for me, it just started as a sensation of awareness. Like I was suddenly aware of my face. I could be driving in my car. I could be, just walking between rooms. And for me, I would just notice that space between my lip and my nose. It wasn't doing anything. It wasn't twitching. There wasn't a pain or anything like that. I just suddenly felt it, which I know isn't very helpful, but that's one of the things that was there. Also, another thing, when my dystonia became more prevalent, the tells would move. So then there would be something at the very back of my tongue. I'd be very aware of the sensation. It felt as though my tongue was, trying to flip over, but it wasn't physically moving. It was just aware. Like a cold sensation, a sensation of heat, but you just suddenly feel it. So that's how I know when it's lurking. The problem is, or I would say the most important trick is how you react and respond to those feelings. So, before my diagnosis, I would have that feeling and I'd be like, that's weird. And I'd go play and maybe one small thing wouldn't be right. So I don't know if everyone's like me, but you start to hyper focus on things that should be, but suddenly aren't. And then over time, I learned that, that weird feeling is associated with when I'm having a difficult time playing. So then when I would start to feel it, I would get, fear, apprehension of my practice that was coming up, or maybe it was before a performance or something like that. So now you're going into practicing with the mindset of you have to protect yourself or you're about to fight something. And, what I've learned about dystonia, what I'm continuing to learn is you can't approach it as a fight because it will win if you approach it as a fight. So it's more about, it's like a peaceful cohabitation and learning to perform, learning to play with it in the room, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've had tremendous fortune this last year on my journey, and it's every day is a little bit better than the day before, and for that I am thankful.
Yeah, because I mean, it used to be back in the day that you'd hear people would get this, and they're like, "Well, you're done," and I mean, you thought you were done, you thought you'd never play again, but then you found out that that's not actually true. That you are able to play again. You bought a flute and an alto flute and all kinds of stuff now.
And a pillow. I think I single-handedly hit Flute World's sales quota for them last summer.
I think you did. Nice. So, and who did you come across in your journey to figuring this out? Did somebody approach you, or did you kind of do the research and found somebody? I mean, what was that?
Oh man. Well, first, if you have the courage of focal dystonia, or embouchure focal dystonia is how it affects me. Some people get it in their hands and other places, but for me, it's in my face. I mean, it's the equivalent of looking on WebMD if you say, you know, my throat tickles. I mean, it's immediately just go ahead and dig a dying hole, jump in. So when you Google focal dystonia, it is not the most optimistic stuff that will come to the top of the feed. So I had done all of that research, you know, gosh, 10, 9, 8 years ago. And that's really what got my head to the place that, okay, let me just, you know, accept my fate and give up. But what ended up happening was, you know, during the pandemic, so many amazing performers and teachers and started broadcasting live all the time. I mean, just you had access to everyone all the time. And an early front runner that I'm sure captivated a lot of folks' attention, because she's a great musician, but she's also just a great showman. And what I learned, she's a phenomenal teacher, is Nicole Esposito started doing just these random, you know, they weren't scheduled, or at least they weren't scheduled, you know, to our eyes, but they seemingly random, just musical thoughts. And there was one day where she was talking about how her hand position doesn't look right, you know. So I guess one of the side effects of putting out so many videos of herself playing was, you know, everyone's a critic. So I guess she was getting messages about her hand position, or why do you play a little off center? And she just started getting all of these things, and you know, that caught my eye, that she was, you know, head on approaching it, and the way that she talked about how playing should be natural, and that looks right shouldn't be a thing we strive for. You know, it needs to feel right, it needs to sound right, and right is different for every person. And I loved that holistic approach. It was so opposite of really my early relationship with the flute. So I reached out to her. I was like, hey, you're putting yourself out there, so I'm going to put myself out there. And so I let her know, you know, can I have one lesson with you? I'll go ahead and guarantee you I'll be the most frustrating student you've ever had, because and then I told her what was wrong, and she's like, I'll take you on head on. And so she got me on this road to recovery literally within the first 60 seconds of watching me play. I took one breath in, I formed my embouchure, and I blew. And she looked over her, you know, her fun glasses and said, "Stop right now. What was that?" And you know, I was like, I haven't even started, like, you haven't seen this fall apart yet. Like, what's going on? She goes, we got to talk about all the little isms that you just did to form that one note. There's too many things getting in the way. And she noticed something with my tongue, and she got me on the journey of mindfulness, of distracting my mind before I would play, you know, because I had predetermined failing before, you know, the first note was blown. And so that's step one of getting around focal dystonia. I'm thankful that now I've realized, yes, it absolutely manifests itself as physical symptoms, but I am 100% convinced that it is predominantly a psychological triggered phenomenon, and that you've got to approach it. You've got to approach it from the lens of, you know, mental health and and being okay saying that, because that you can control. And so I don't know, that optimistic mindset. Sorry, I'm getting a flood of text messages, so I'm a flood because I'm so popular. It's my wife actually telling me how to do something in the crock pot. But it's the president. That mental choice that I will, let's see what we can do is 100%, the path to recover.
Very cool. Very cool. And there's something that you said, I think it was about playing in the mirror. And I've said this to a couple people and their brains just go, what? About, was it Nicole who said this, that basically you're kind of tricking yourself, like you're playing in the mirror and you're watching this other person play the flute instead of thinking it's you.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
For sure. And now her approach on it, because she was open with me that she hadn't, really ever encountered anyone with dystonia. So she's like, I don't know what I can do for you, but let's see. But what worked and what we discovered was that mirror trick works. And now as I've, really started seeking out, who else has learned things about dystonia, that's actually that's like page 1 of things to try. So for example, people that writer's cramp, they do a thing where they'll put a mirror up and write and watch their hand in the mirror, and that helps them because writer's cramp is a form of dystonia. And for me, it's like that Michael Jackson song, "The Man in the Mirror." My brain was so focused on watching that guy in the mirror, center things properly, and just taking a breath without pulling anything or doing anything weird with my tongue, that it was like sneaking into playing the flute. And then once the note starts, I'm fortunate because mine, it's either there at the front or it's not there. So as long as I could get things started solid, I could play anything, any register, whatever. It's just getting started, which is super frustrating because you take a lot of breaths in. In preparation for today, I was thinking, what new could I tell you? Some other isms that I've learned even about myself along the way. And I know I saw in the description, you'd asked me to talk about head joints a little bit, but one of the side effects of me being so hyper-focused on the guy in the mirror is I have been physically distorting myself to look in the mirror. And what I mean by is, to get close to a mirror, you gotta do a lot of this. And so a year of that has side effects. And so one of the side effects has been, I've been twisting my neck and back to the point where I've herniated a disc in two, actually in C5. I know, like, I'm the only one that can mess up. What's that?
Actually herniated?
Yes, and so they're now bulging and pushing on those nerve roots. Well, those nerve roots go down, my right arm, and they impact these 2 fingers and my thumb. And so what I noticed then was that, like the dystonic feelings, I can tell when my nerve is pinched because it just feels really weak. And so my right arm actually would be shaking. And so now it's almost like I'm fighting one more physical thing. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person who can break myself, playing the flute. So
no, you're not.
It's bananas. I'm the only one that could mess up a cup of water, I'm telling you. But I have found a neat solution. Now, I'm only 4 days in, so of course I'm optimistic, but I found a neat solution, and we can talk about that whenever you're ready.
Well, I want to know. You can't just put it out there and not tell us. What is it?
A good friend of mine, Dr. Matthew Allison, he's my person that I don't know if I'm his person all the time, but he's definitely my person where I'll just send him my mad. This room is my office, but it's also my practice room, when I'm working. and it's my mad science laboratory. The next time you dial in, I'm going to have like an anti-gravity machine. You just don't know what's going on in here. But my neurologist, when they were figuring out what was going on with my right arm, he said, dude, you're going to have to find a way to not do this and this at the same time anymore, because it's like kinking a hose. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, what can I do? And someone in our Solo of the Month Facebook group, Gabriel, had thoracic outlet syndrome when he was in graduate school, and that's what you had. And, before he had his surgery to fix it, he bought a Drellinger upright head joint, one of those vertical head joints, and I've seen them before, but I thought they were a novelty. I didn't take it serious. And anyway, so he reached out to me and said, Mark, I'm all better now. And this thing is just collecting dust. I would love to see it go somewhere. So he sold it to me, and I got it I got it about 4 weeks ago. It's been sitting in my office for 3 weeks and 3.5 weeks because I didn't have
immediately.
I didn't touch it. I was afraid of it. I was afraid of what it would do. Again, dystonia is psychological. So I had all these boogeymen. I could only play this flute. I can only play it this way. And so finally, this past Friday, I went to play, and my right arm was trembling so bad. And I was like, this is not right. It's time. So I opened up that case and I got it out. I would be lying if I said it was instant success. I mean, nothing could. I've got it.
Oh, let's see it.
So
yeah, that's wild.
It's just bananas. It's already weird, because all the little sense, because my head joint isn't engraved. This one is. So already, that's tickling the hair on my chin. That and so that set my brain into a tizzy. It's thin wall versus my flute is heavy wall, so I'm used to having a little bit more resistance. So there's just things. Oh, and by the way, it's vertical. You play it like a clarinet. But
right.
What's that?
I said right, and I'm super, super wondering, so does this have anything to do, does it help with the dystonia? Because I know in our podcast we were talking about, you touch it here, you just break the pattern. Well, this is this is not a different pattern, but this is a different pattern.
Why? And Angela, my first instrument, I actually started on the saxophone, and I switched to flute kind of late in high school. And so what's so fascinating and super frustrating is I can stick a saxophone or a clarinet in my mouth and play, and I could go 4 years without playing and pick it up, and I sound just like I did. And so what's fascinating, I have, again, 4 days in, so I'm filled with theories, ask me a week from now, is it feels just like a clarinet in my hands. And I don't, it just feels like I'm home. Physically, it feels like home. And I don't know how to say it. So, it took me, the first day was just getting over the physical weirdness. Everything else has been remarkably easy. There's some neat things that you discover about your playing tendencies when you switch. So, I've got a relatively good sense of relative pitch. So intonation has never really been an opportunity for me. And when I was playing this thing, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm wildly out of tune with myself. Octaves were out of tune. My left hand was sharp. My right hand was flat. I was like, and then I was like, it's this head joint, it couldn't possibly be me. And I reached out to someone who has played on it upright for a while, and she said, you just have to just keep playing. Your ear will find the pitch. Oh, which, by the way, that's another thing that's really weird, is you're not hearing everything out of your right, you're hearing everything equal, which is it's totally different. But anyway, over I've recorded myself every day, and poor Matthew as getting all of these play-by-plays. And the first day, wildly out of tune. The second day, far more in tune. And then yesterday, I had a pretty great day. I mean, it was exciting. In fact, it felt so right that it was the first time in my practice journal where I wrote, I like this better than my other head joint, which I loved so much. And oh my gosh, like I could do this. Like, this is fantastic. So far so good. I'm enthusiastic. What's interesting today, I'll share with you. I have a little bit of trepidation about playing this afternoon, and it's only because yesterday was so good that now I have a fear of, well, what if today is good? What if it finds me? And so, you know, I'm sharing that to be open and honest. I'm a painfully optimistic guy as it is, and I want to make sure for anyone who finds this or listens to it later that they know that it's work. And there are tough days. There's already tough days, and if you don't have dystonia, but when you have a tough day and you have dystonia, trying to figure out, is it tough because it's just a tough day? Is it tough because of this? And the best advice I can give from my currently super optimistic, coming right off of a string of many good days in a row, is just remember that the playing is with you. You didn't suddenly forget how to play. It's not going to go away forever. And what does feel absolutely devastating in the moment, it is absolutely temporary. And that back to playing in no time.
Yeah, I mean, I liken it to whenever you have a bad tone day or you have a good tone day. Like some days you just pick up the instrument and you're like, oh my gosh, it's effortless. Everything comes out so perfect. I sound amazing. And the next day you're like, I can't find it. Why is it fuzzy? Why? It's just, I'm not there. And, and you just hope that the day you have an audition, it's a good tone day. It never is. But, at least in my experience, it's like usually the day before is amazing. Then I go to the audition and it's meh. Like every time. But yeah, I mean, it's not, you're right. It's not going to go away. You didn't forget how to play your instrument. And it's just really fascinating about the whole thing about the fears and the way you're talking about your mentality towards the whole thing is just, it's very, I don't know. It's very like, you just want to get it right all the time, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I was thinking of other ways of, again, it's like this room is a psychological experiment. Somebody needs to videotape it like 24/7 just to watch the progression. One of the things, I write myself notes. I write tomorrow's me a note at the end of today's practice, just like, hey, buddy, and I've actually got yesterday's note here in front of me, and it says, remember to stay curious. What can you do? And I'm just like, that was such a nice guy, because sometimes he doesn't leave me nice notes. But stay curious. And the intent of that is, even on those really, really tough days, again, instead of trying to kick focal dystonia out, it's like cohabitation. It's stay curious. What can I do with you? And I call that finding your leverage. So find the thing that you can do today. So maybe I guess it's kind of a play on, long tones, where you find your good note and slowly carry it to the next one and carry it to the next. And so the same thing holds true with playing with dystonia. Find the thing. Maybe it's, oh my gosh, I've got an amazing middle register legato today. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play, I don't know, Amazing Grace in every major and minor key. And that's going to be my practice for the day. And it's going to be fantastic. And it might not be what's on the stand, but I'm going to apply, all the things required for that, because I know that in the pieces that are coming up, I'm going to need a great legato. And it makes you feel productive. And, you're advancing the practice ball, down the field just a little bit. And that makes those, especially the tough days, that makes those tough days feel productive. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. You got to keep that spirit of creativity and excitement and curiosity and, just finding out, what happens if I do this? What if I do this? It's not about perfectionism. It's
exploration. It's kind of a game.
For sure.
And it's, you know, your amazing sound will be there, which is it's super exciting because you took a lot of years off and here we are. So that's super exciting. I have a couple friends that I'm definitely going to be sending this to who have vocal dystonia. Is there any kind of resources you want to share or any thoughts on or advice? Anybody who's got this and doesn't know what to do next or where to look or whatever?
Everyone's journey is different, and I'm by no means, you know, I've got my day job that keeps me, thank goodness for the world that my day job keeps me busy, because I would devote 24 hours a day to this cause if I had the time to do so.
Sure.
So for me, what I know for sure is that approaching it alone doesn't work. And it's triggered by fight or flight, that feeling like that anxiety. And as long as it's a secret that you're keeping, and more importantly, as long as it's a secret that you're trying to prevent other people from finding out, you are going to just make it worse. And so I think the first right thing I did in this now 11-year journey was when I finally had the courage to make it public. And public doesn't, it can mean different things for different people. Just let your teacher know, but just someone you trust know. But for me, it's been, all right, so I'm going to let my online community know. That way, if I can't participate in this week's etude or this month's solo, they know that it's not that I just, got flighty, that, they know I'm dealing with something and that I'm there in spirit, and dang it, I'm, finding my leverage, to practice along somehow. So that was really important. And then the second thing, like anything else, is find people way smarter than you. So for me, it was, first seeking out Nicole, and then finding Anna, who we talked about last time. And now it's so neat, and I think I said this last time we were together, is there's lots of positive articles and positive videos, and hopefully somebody will find this and say, oh, that was positive, that have hope built into them. And so it's not the scary diagnosis with the horrible ending of the story that you would have seen 10 years ago. There's so many more people saying, yes, and now I'm able to do all of these amazing things. And what's really fascinating, even if it's one person 10 years from now that watches this, is in almost every case that I've read about, person I've talked to, listened to, whatever, almost always they say that the musician that they are now, the player that they are now, is better than the person that they were prior. And one, I think, part of artistry is you've got to bring personal experience into it. So there's a new pain, because it hurts, going through that. But maybe more importantly, there's such a sense of appreciation. Every note is a gift when you come through dystonia. And so I think you could hear that joy in listening to those folks play.
Absolutely. So Levi wants to join, apparently. But,
love it.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us today, and for your vulnerability and your honesty. And I think it's really important to have that conversation. And like you said, letting other people know, and you're going to block the camera, aren't you? Yep. All right. Letting other people know that, it's not the end of things. It's just a different journey that you have to take now, which can actually help a whole lot of other people. So yeah, I'll be sharing this everywhere. And thank you for joining us. We did actually interview Anna right after you. So that was a fantastic interview.
She's ridiculous smart.
She knows all the things when it comes to it. All the things. Yeah. We just keep talking. We're listening. I mean, she just did brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in this video as well. Anna Ditari is doing her dissertation in musicians vocal dystonia, and she had a whole lot of resources. So you guys can go watch that on our YouTube channel for the Tuned and Strong podcast. But Mark, thank you again. This was wonderful. And I'm super excited about your new head joint.
I know, me too. My oldest daughter is so funny. She goes, so what, you play like the number 7 now? Because for sure, it does look like you're playing a number 7. I'm like, whatever. It sounds great.
There's another one that looks like a T, which I think is funny, but that one really does look like a 7.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Bye.